All right. One day we will be able to actually stream. When that happens, who knows? I am also going to block.
Oh.
Just the end.
Who subscribed on my YouTube account to SGA? Don't.
Start.
I did not necessarily do that. All right. So we are going to get started with Senate Session 18 of SGA. We're going to start out with a roll call. Ben, do we have enough voting members for quorum right now?
I mean, last I saw we had 19. We are at 20 voting members of the necessary 15. So yes, we have enough voting members.
Perfect. Okay, so as you can see, we have a beefy agenda tonight. As a result of that, I am going to be pretty strictly enforcing timing rules when it comes to things. In particular, I am going to make sure that I keep track down to the second, the 5 minutes, which is going to be appropriated for each of the different sections. And also as a just temporary rule, if someone would like to dispute this, that is up to you. You'll be given around 2 minutes at most to speak overall. All right, so we are going to kick it off with the public safety issues which are currently going on. So is it Ian, I believe? Ian, all right, thank you. I believe you had a few comments that you wanted to say about the open letter that we are talking about later tonight. After you.
Yes, we do our best to try to accommodate all of the requests for escorts as quickly as possible. We have the escort hours. We have a dedicated officer in the public safety van. And if we're getting backed up, we will generally pull a second vehicle to be able to, try to get to you guys as quickly as possible. And off-campus escorts only run at the specified times. We will do an on-campus escort 24/7. You can call dispatch, say, hey, it's getting dark out. I'd like an escort from, Herman Hall to Kaplan or Keating or wherever. And on campus, it could be a walking escort. It could be a vehicle escort. It just depends on what our staffing levels are. But we do value our students. You are the reason we're here. And you are a priority. Just, please be patient if we can't get to you as quickly as you might like. We're doing our best. Sometimes, depending on the weather and traffic, it can take a little bit for the shuttle van to get back around. But believe me, Director Yoakum and myself and Deputy Director Bersoni, we all take your safety very seriously. And, we want to provide the best service we can for you. And I'll take any questions anybody might have.
All right. So as usual, we're going to go into a 5-minute question and answer period, after which we will be moving on to the next issue since this does not have any voting issues associated with it. Nova?
I think Ben raised his hand on.
Ben, you have something to say?
Yeah, just to confirm with Ian, I believe the department is also going to be starting to keep better sort of metrics about how long these calls take, right? I believe Director Yoakum today mentioned that we're going to try to do better tracking when calls come in and when students actually receive their escort, if that was correct.
Yes, we've had some newer folks in dispatch. We've been going through the logs. I did get some preliminary numbers. We had a total of 1,037 escorts in February, and we're at 125 to date for March. And we can try to get some more numbers going back. I know there were pre-COVID during the course of the school year in the neighborhood of 16,000 escorts over the course of the school year pre-COVID. So we do quite a bit, but yes, we are trying to track that better. And, you know, if it looks like, you know, we need to add more coverage, that's something we're certainly willing to, you know, bring to the school and say, hey, it, you know, looks like we could benefit from, you know, having an extra body assigned.
All right, got it. Nova, you have a question?
Thank you, Joel. Ian, can you hear me from here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So first off, thank you for having the meeting with the exec board today. I'm sure that is extremely valued. One source of confusion we had at our last meeting discussing the letter was the entire scope of the public escort service. So one question we had was, is it a service that goes from anywhere to anywhere on campus, or is it a service that is meant to be checkpoint based, wherein students are supposed to go to certain areas on campus to go anywhere on campus?
The off-campus escorts have designated drop-off points. So they will typically go out as far as Halsted. I don't have the exact points in front of me. And then we go to Prairie Shores, South Commons, you know, where pretty much everyone is. On-campus escorts, you can go anywhere on campus, and that, depending on our staff, that could be in a vehicle or it could be just a walking escort. If you're at, you know, Galvin Tower and you want to escort to MTCC, depending on who's available, you know, it could be a walking escort. It could be one of our bike patrol officers could just, you know, walk or ride alongside of you. But you can go anywhere on campus, point A to point B, 24/7, and we'll get someone there as quick as we can, you know, based on what's going on at the time. If, you know, obviously if there's a fire, some other emergency, it might take a little while, but we will get to you as quick as we can.
All right. I actually have a question myself, if no one else does. I don't believe anyone has raised their hand in chat. Where can we find information on the times of the escort service, when it's available and where it's available? Did you hear me?
No, I did. I thought you had a side conversation. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I'm just wondering where the information on the times and locations and pickups, drop-offs, so on and so forth, is publicly available for students to see and know about.
It should be up on the public safety website.
Okay. Gotcha.
I dropped the URL in chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I believe we can move on to our next topic of discussion for tonight, which is going to be the public safety open letter sponsored by Nova. Nova, if you'd like to come up here and then give a summary of what your open letter is.
All right, so I will present this as I did last week because nothing has changed with it. This letter basically addresses the complaints that I have heard from a group and multiple students regarding the public escort service. And it seems like that public safety is at least partially aware of these issues and are already working on it. I do see there is a value in passing this still just to get SGA's formal opinion, just so the student body can be more formally aware that SGA and public safety are working together on this. the bill itself brings up some operational issues within the public safety thing, including examples in which a group of students were either uninformed or had delayed services on off-campus escort, along with being directed to go to a checkpoint that was about halfway across campus while they were on campus, which obviously isn't what Ian had previously kind of displayed what public escort is going to be, and kind of halfway defeats the point of a public escort on campus. So for the most part, the action within this bill, the call to action is to call upon public safety to issue a public statement in light of this, as well as to inform the student body on how they may do this by ensuring that such problems may not occur again. Thank you.
All right, thanks. As usual, we're going to be going into 5-minute Q&A. So does anyone have any questions they would like to ask Nova? And please call out if anyone is raising their hand. Ben, actually.
Yes. So I know an earlier draft of the letter didn't call for a statement. It called directly for an apology from public safety. Has the language been updated to just be asking for a statement, or is it still asking for an apology?
As of now, it is still asking for an apology. I was referring to the statement as apology. I was skimming over, but yes, it does ask for an apology.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move to discussion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So with that standard 5-minute discussion period, does anyone have any questions, comments, motions that they would like to make about this particular open letter? Does anyone have any? Or do I just have a motion to call the previous question? Second? All right, then go ahead and release the voting form. Once I see that go up into the Slack channel. Perfect, got it. Please vote on that as soon as you possibly can. Yeah, we'll go ahead. With that, we are going to be moving on to our, I forgot to move the slide. Wonderful. We're going to be moving on to the next agenda item, which is an overall discussion on Ukraine and the open letter which SGA received earlier last week as well. I believe that we have a presentation from a Ukrainian student. Would you like to come up here and give said presentation?
I shared it with you.
Perfect. You guys can still see this presentation, correct? 2 buttons right there. Yes.
Can I open a YouTube?
That would be fine.
Okay. Also, how much time do we have?
Let me give you a 5-minute one.
Okay, yeah. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Julia. I'm an American Ukrainian student here. And I'm going to present something we were supposed to present last week, but didn't end up doing so. And I was born here, just so everyone knows, but this presentation was made by also students that were born in Ukraine. And we all have family in Ukraine, actually. So just keep that in mind as I'm presenting. This is something really important to me, important to us. So yeah, this is just the first slide. This is just a map of Ukraine dating back to 1918. We just wanted to show you guys that Ukraine was Ukraine before the USSR. And the next slide shows that Ukraine was Ukraine before Russia was Russia. So if anyone has a question about like, you know, if this was a country or not, if we were like a state we were. So I was gonna do kind of a long brief history, but I'm gonna try to shorten it. But basically, leading up to today, there were key events that happened, and they started in 2014. I'm gonna go down a little bit, or to 2013. But basically, Ukraine gained its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, pretty recent. But their fight for independence didn't stop there. After gaining independence, Ukrainians suffered from a lot of corrupt government officials. And so, for example, while some pushed for a closer relationship with the European Union, Viktor Yushchenko, which was one of the presidents, others like Viktor Yanukovych pushed for closer ties with Russia. And this led to a lot of revolution, depending on what the presidents did. So, for example, when Viktor Yushchenko, when Viktor Yanukovych pushed for closer ties with Russia, the Orange Revolution began, and it was pretty much big riots and protests. And then I'm gonna skip some of this information, but during Viktor Yanukovych's presidency, he ran for presidency, didn't get it, then ran again, got it, but he wasn't a great guy. He decided not to sign the European Union Association Agreement. This means that Ukraine would be following the reforms that would converge its policies to those of the EU. This was good and bad, depending on how you look at it, but in return, Ukraine would gain political and financial support from the EU, and that was basically a good thing overall. But then, when this wasn't signed, protests began in 2013 to 2014. The first thing that happened, this protest was called Euromaidan. You might have heard of it back then, but it was also called the Revolution of Dignity. I know it more as Euromaidan. And then at this time, I believe there was a huge student protest where 100 people died. I believe the exact number is 107, and that was like a really significant number for a protest. And who killed the protesters? In Ukraine, there's again a lot of corruption, a lot of Russian forces, but as Ukrainian officers, it's just that's just what happened. And then as you may know, the annexation of Crimea happened, and this was denounced as illegal by pretty much everyone except Russia. And then the war began on the east side of Ukraine, called the War in Donbass, and pretty much thousands of people died. 500,000 people had to relocate that area. So just so you guys know. And then there was a president, Petro Poroshenko. He signed the economic part of the European Union Association Agreement on June 27, 2014, after all of this protesting. And that was really good. And then, as you all know, now the president is Volodymyr Zelensky, and he is slowly growing the ties with the EU. I think he was boosting morale. I think he's a really great guy. So this is what happened in 2014 in the capital when Euromaidan was happening. It was just chaos, destruction all over the place. And I remember I was in a freshman in high school, kind of going out of middle school. This was a crazy thing. I wasn't worried for my family because they weren't near the capital, but I was worried for the future of Ukraine. So how the war began. You might have seen the video of Putin speaking about Ukraine and saying that he wants to pretty much invade because there's Nazification in Ukraine and that kind of progress, which wasn't true. I don't know if you guys know, but the president is Jewish. We have a lot of Jewish people in Ukraine. And yeah, most of them are Christian or Catholic, I think, but that's not it's not relevant. So tensions escalated, and on February 21st, that's when Putin delivered the speech. And on February 24th, he announced he was launching an assault to defend. I'm gonna read this here. To defend people who for 8 years are suffering persecution and genocide by the Kiev regime, which is not true. So first day of the war, February 24th, strikes began. 4 a.m. Russian forces launched a series of missile attacks against locations near Kiev, the capital, pretty much on the top center of Ukraine. And then as well as the use of long-range artillery against the northeastern city of Kharkiv near the Russian border, which is actually where my mom's cousin lives, and we call her every day to make sure she's okay. And the strike spread to different places, and these are like huge cities. These are not just like small towns. And they're pretty much everywhere because or at least I was expecting another war to break out on the east side, but now it's just everywhere. As you can see, these were all like the marked missile attacks. I was gonna show the YouTube video, but I have to.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, I just wanted to show you. You guys might have seen this. I just think this is such a like a great example of the courage that Ukrainian people have. This was on Snake Island, which is in the Black Sea area, and I'm pretty much a Russian warship wanted to, you know, invade the island and pretty much blow it up or bomb it up, whatever. And I believe there were 10 Ukrainian soldiers protecting it. And this is like the conversation between them. So I'm just gonna play it. So yeah, I know it's like funny, and it just broke my heart when he said, "This is it." Like, you know, they knew what was gonna happen, and they knew. And they still stayed, and they still protected the land. They didn't even like waver. Like, I don't know, just a really important video in my eyes. Okay, sorry. So then the second day of war in Ukraine, February 25th. This is just an update. So President Zelensky is saying today we have lost 137 of our heroes and 316 people are injured. I don't know if this is like a small number for you or a big number, but that was more than the first day of the protest in Ukraine, like back in 2013, and the numbers just kept growing. Around this time, I believe like 16 children died, and also maybe in your eyes not a big number, but just crazy for them saying they're gonna help Ukraine by invading. Like they're not helping at all. And as you can see, people's like apartments were destroyed, like where they live. Like it wasn't just, you know, maybe military like places or anything like that. It was just their lives are turned upside down. So this is still the second day, I think. Today's Russian attacks on a kindergarten and an orphanage are war crimes and violations of the Rome Statute. So they're attacking places like schools, places that should not be attacked. None of the places should be attacked. But this is a picture of a Ukrainian soldier that actually sacrificed himself against, like, to stop Russian forces. And a lot of these things have been happening, just like on Snake Island. People are sleeping in like metro stations and like underneath or in bomb shelters and stuff, and this is just happening all over Ukraine. I think this is just showing more of the invasion, where they're coming from. So as you can see right now, the West is pretty like secure. That's where most of my family's from. Third day of war in Ukraine. I mean, I think this is actually Kharkiv, which is right now, if you look up pictures of that city, it's completely destroyed. People are living in the bomb shelters for days, and they're just communicating when they can. And then I'm not sure what that tweet is. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say bear with me in the beginning because I didn't make all these slides, and I'm just trying my best to convey what was on them. But it says Russian forces have blown up a gas pipeline in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. And also, I don't know if you guys have heard, this isn't in the presentation, but Chernobyl had an active nuclear power plant, and then the power cut out to it. I think like today I read that. And that's a huge, huge issue. I don't know if you guys know what happened in Chernobyl, but it was a devastating, like it was a catastrophe. And now that Russian forces are trying to attack that area, they're just being done. I don't know how long this video is, but I can skip it now. I didn't check. Okay, I think basically this video was saying that he's going to take measures against anyone who goes against. So as you can see, he's an insane person, a dictator. I don't know how he's still alive, but yeah. Protests in all over the world have started. So in the US, I think there were a lot on like the bordering countries of Ukraine. And then these are just some of the pictures. I went to one in the city that was like it was just really cool to see everyone standing together. It's not violent. And I think there's one I don't know what day it is, but it's on the 13th in Ukrainian Village. If you guys don't know, in Chicago, there's a place called Ukrainian Village. A bunch of Ukrainians live there. So then President Zelensky addressed the Belarusian people. I'm also not sure everything on this slide. It says the troops of the Russian Federation, Ukraine launched rockets from the territory of Belarus by children, destroying houses. They're trying to blow up everything built over a decade. So this was something like you guys can think about. Russia keeps saying they're coming to save Ukrainians. They're coming to save us. So when Russia comes to save you, you Google what to do after a nuclear attack. You sit in the bomb shelter and listen to every sound. You sleep in shifts with your friends. You can't listen to anything on your headphones because you need to control everything. You can recognize the difference of the weapon on this. I think it means like you can't recognize the difference of what is a weapon or not. Every kid knows how to make a Molotov cocktail. The most significant cities from all around the world come on the streets to listen to the Ukrainian anthem. Your bodies can stop tapes without a single shot barehanded. There were so many videos of Ukrainians just standing in front of these tapes, in front of these cars, begging for Russian forces to stop driving into Ukraine, and they don't care. Without any armor, without any like guns or anything. Your phone is buzzing from notifications about the air alerts every hour. How are you means I love you, I care about you. You propose Russia identifies the way that gets wounded and captive, but they refuse and block your database. And all of that happens in one single day. So the 4th day of the Russian war against Ukraine, 2 days before spring. And this is the 5th day. A Russian military convoy stretching back 65 kilometers has amassed on the outskirts of Ukraine's capital. Amid fears that invading forces were sent to launch devastating assaults to take control of Kyiv. They used a thermobaric weapon on Monday in its invasion of Ukraine, which is prohibited by the Geneva Convention, and then President Zelensky called for an international tribunal to investigate Russia for war crimes. This has been happening like a lot, where Zelensky is just trying to get other countries involved, because otherwise, like an invasion is illegal. Like you can't just invade other countries, obviously. So trying to get other people involved. So many people are fleeing, and there's a lot of places you can donate to, like, and to help Ukrainians that are fleeing. You guys can read some of these yourself. These are just more facts. Also, the first thing is really important. Zelensky asked the EU for membership. When they signed the application, I have it. If they begin applying like now, or I had it that they can begin in 2024, but maybe it's happening now. it takes years to actually be accepted. So by around 2030, they would be accepted. But we need like action right now, and we need support right now. 6th day of the war. Yeah, I think this is just similar things. This is like a lot of Kharkiv again, that city on the east side. It's just completely getting destroyed. Oh, see, there's a temporary problem with TV broadcast, which is really not good. Oh, okay. I'm also gonna skip through some of these. Russian troops in Kharkiv were firing at civilians, and those were waiting in line for the food. So regular people are waiting. They're trying to run, and then Russian troops don't even care who you are. They're gonna kill you. So I'm gonna keep going. 2,000. Oh, this is where I got the 16 children number. 2,000 civilians, 16 children were killed since Russia attacked Ukraine. President Joe Biden officially closed U.S. airspace to Russian aircraft in response to the country's invasion of neighboring Ukraine. Also, in relation to this, you might have heard like the chant, NATO like close the sky, or like stuff like that. And that's because right now we need like no one in our skies in Ukraine, just for safety, and yeah. And I still think that hasn't happened yet. Our skies are still open. So more than 800,000 Ukrainians have fled the fighting since the invasion began. I mean, little kids are being put on trains to different countries and expected to be okay, to find anyone that can help them without their families. It's kind of crazy. Ukraine's president says nearly 6,000 Russian soldiers have died in the war. Of course, Putin is saying no one has died. No Russian soldiers have died in the war, which is propaganda. Yeah, I mean, they're just threatening all of the countries. So like, that's why everyone's involved in this. So what can we do? Donate humanitarian help, hold protests, localize and share references, post on social media, sign petitions, get supplies to refugee camps in surrounding countries. And what should IIT do for Ukraine? So most are really asking for us to educate. That's the whole point of this presentation. I know a lot of people aren't here, and I know it was really long, but we're just trying to get as much information on it as we can, because there is a lot of Russian propaganda, and there are a lot of people that may not know exactly what's going on. So we're hoping to, in the future, we're trying to get a Ukrainian org on campus, but if that doesn't happen, we'll still push for doing a lecture like this or a movie night. There's a lot of good documentaries on Netflix. I think Winter on Fire is on Netflix. It's about what happened in 2013, I believe. And then Bitter Harvest is about a genocide that happened in during the Soviet Union, I believe. And then you can contact your local officials and then organize a student-led protest. This is something we really are interested in, with organizing a protest with schools like Loyola, DePaul, Northwestern, but we're still in contact with them right now. I don't know what's happening with that. And then here's some trusted sources if you guys are curious. On Twitter, I also follow Ukraine's official Twitter account, and I just really like they include like easy to read stuff that I feel like, because sometimes I don't understand all the politics, but I feel like they're really good at getting a message across. And then there's the Kyiv Independent, which I'm guessing kind of like a newspaper. And then here's some websites: the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, and then Razom for Ukraine. You guys might have heard about this, but it's a nonprofit org in the US helping Ukrainians. And then if you see these are on campus, FRN, with a lot of help from Jason Scott, actually, they started a food drive or supply drive. So there's like a link tree. I don't know if the like QR code will work for you guys, but that's just a link tree to some sources. And then if you see these donation boxes, please feel free to donate if you can. But I'm really grateful for Jason and for Chelsea for helping me do this. And that's my email in case you are interested in joining the Ukrainian org. I'm still not sure if it will be approved or not, but we just need like interested members. So if you are interested, please let me know. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving that wonderful presentation. I guess, would you mind if you answered any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for? None? Okay. Thank you. So, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because after last week's meeting, SGA received an open letter from a few students talking about the resolution which we passed last week, creating a committee to hopefully deal with what I've been calling the Ukrainian issue. I believe that's the best way to talk about it. And I wanted to open up a channel, just like a 10 minute period where we can talk about that open letter and take what we think is actually viable in that letter and incorporate it into the resolution. Effectively listen to the people who put forward the open letter, but also trying to listen to the students that this issue is affecting. So does anyone have anything that they immediately would like to say upon hearing that? If not, I can start talking about it. Nova.
Just making my comments short because I'm sure we're going to have a lot more discussion after this. I just want to say to the student, thank you very much for the presentation. And I personally am very proud of this institution last week for doing our part to help the millions in Ukraine who are suffering. This is objectively a horrible tragedy. And I look forward to the future of cooperation between SGA, IIT, and the Ukrainian people, and hopefully with all oppressed peoples. Thank you.
Thank you, Nova. Do I have any other comments? Chris.
I agree with Chloe's comments. That was in the Slack from last week about maybe expanding or like expanding the current committee to be like just a humanitarian crisis committee, or we can create an additional one on top of that if expanding it isn't necessarily feasible. I still don't know how all this because I do agree that what we're doing right now to support Ukraine is good. And I also want to see SGA do more to help other oppressed people around the world.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Jason.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more when it comes to, again, helping everyone, as it's noted, and again, the comments that Chloe said. And I reached out, I sent some emails to those that wrote the letter about possibly doing like a humanitarian club on campus. Since again, it does seem like there's a lot of red tape when it comes to like trying to direct funds from an SGA from the SAF. But if you were able to do it and make a club, and then you can then use funding from the SAF to make an event that is more like a legitimate way. So again, I would love to get to discuss that as a humanitarian club. But again, I'm all for it. And I think like a lot of us were just really dedicated to try to get Spain to Ukraine. That we didn't plan to do a club, and we just thought of any ideas to do. So I do apologize for any. I hope we can do a club.
There is someone online who has their hand raised.
Whoever is online, sorry, I can't see the people who have their hands raised.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey everyone, my name is Agla. I'm a 2017 alum. of IIT, and while I appreciate the students getting up and speaking about the current conflict, I think as someone who has been on campus since 2013 and graduated, like I said, in 2017, I think there's a lot of selective empathy going on at this point. As we know, the conflict in Ukraine did not start on February 24th, 2022 of this year. It's been ongoing since the 2014 Maidan protests, which were backed by the United States, which were funded by them in a lot of ways. And I think it should be discussions about where funding is going, if SGA or SAF funding is going to go anywhere to Ukraine, should be more directly impacting Black and brown students who are there, African students who are met with violence at the border by Ukrainian military, the Roma, queer Ukrainians, like trans queer Ukrainians. And I want to be clear that glossing over about the neo-Nazi issue is dangerous. If y'all are not going to talk about the Azov battalion, about the Adar battalion, about President Zelensky, like the Pandora Papers revealing that he was storing payments from a top funder, Israeli Igor Kolomoisky, in offshore accounts, who's also the funder of these battalions, then you're not getting the full picture of what's going on over there. And I say this as someone, I am Lithuanian, so I have family in Lithuania, and Lithuania is a NATO country that's been part of NATO since 2004. But I also have friends who live in Ukraine. I also have friends who live and have been affected by what's going on Donbass and has been going on Donbass in Luhansk and Donetsk since 2014, right? And I think it's important that we get a fuller picture of what's going on instead of labeling Putin as some kind of crazy person. And no, I'm not a Putin apologist, if that's what y'all are ready to label me as. I can provide links with more information if y'all are interested. But I think if funds are going to be donated, they have to be donated to people who are experiencing violence right now. Like I said, African students, Roma, queer folks, trans folks. And I'm happy to answer any questions, happy to provide more sources from the West, Western media, Guardian, Al Jazeera, Gray Zone. So yeah, I just want to give my piece. Thank you.
All right. And I know that we do have hands currently raised, but we have run out of time. Do I have a motion to extend? And if so, by how long?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Do I have a second? Gotcha. All right. So to that, I'm sorry, I missed your name. Whoever just spoke. I'm terrible at remembering names. I'm sorry.
My name is Agla.
Agla?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's spelled Gle, Agla.
Agla. Okay. Are there any questions for them? Or just any statements overall? Nova?
Thank you to the previous speaker. And I think I can say on behalf of most, if not all, of this institution that yes, we should 100% be paying attention to where any funding goes to Ukraine. And I think one of the strengths of a committee, whether it's dedicated to Ukraine or if we expand it to a full humanitarian committee, is that we are looking carefully into how can we help the right people, the right sources without getting any of that funding to, say, neo-Nazi groups or groups that are not impacted like minority groups, as you mentioned.
In addition to that, I feel it would be helpful if those links were posted in the chat, if you would not mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I apologize if it seemed like I glossed over those issues. I definitely, I'm not well versed in what's going on in Ukraine. I've lived here my whole life and I don't know specifically. I just know that I have family there that could die. That's where I'm coming from. And I really do apologize for not knowing about other groups in Ukraine that are suffering. I'm looking at it more as a whole, and I know that Ukrainian people don't want to be a part of Russia is what I'm trying to say. And also I do stand by the fact that I like that Putin is insane for me. That's my opinion. You guys can think differently. And I also wanted to talk about the funding issue. I feel like that's going to be the main conversation. And a lot of my Ukrainian friends wanted to do this to ask IIT or SGA to post and to forward information and to do that type of like contribution. I don't necessarily think funding is like the biggest issue. I know it's helpful, but we can start an org or we can get funding from other methods. So if the funding part of this is an issue, I just want to focus more on the getting information out and supporting students that are here that, you know, every day call their family members to see if they're alive type of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments on the open letter or the issue overall? Alejandro?
Yes, I want to point out that I'm thankful for everything that was pointed out about everything that's going on in Ukraine, as well as other issues that a lot of people have, or at least in some people's eyes, glossed over. I just want to say that I don't think anyone is doing it on purpose. I think we're all taking this issue very seriously, and it's just that because of the presence of this on media, that's what we tend to focus on most. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're intentionally glossing over any other issues. And I think that given the time and opportunity, we should hopefully try to address those issues also. But I think right now we're trying to focus on the task at hand, which is this discussion about Ukraine and the possibility of forming a committee or org or whatever we decide to do, allocate SAF funds or whatever. And I think that we need to take those steps as we go along, trying to decide what is best for everyone.
Thank you. Chloe?
I just wanted to speak on the open letter as I had signed it and also made the comment under that I wanted to change it a little. I think the goal, and I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but I think the overall goal was to expand. It wasn't say, oh, we're getting rid of the Ukrainian committee in general. It was just that it would be under a different name, but the terminology was written a little incorrect in the letter, which is what I noted in the Slack. So something that I've been working on with a couple other people in SGA, we're drafting somewhat of an amendment to essentially reestablish the existing committee into a humanitarian relief crisis committee overall. And how that it sets some more clear boundaries and guidelines under how it'll work with under SGA and how that would work with financing. So that's what so look forward to that coming up, open for comments and whatnot. Just wanted to put that out there.
Are there any current comments on that amendment, open letter, or anything so far? Clay? Sorry, I'm gonna say that wrong every single time. I apologize.
You're good. It's Agna. Yeah, I think the alums that I've talked to about this definitely see expansion of the structure of this committee or whatever it is into a humanitarian one as a good idea. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here tonight. Like, I don't mean to represent all of them, but you know, I'm just kind of speaking on behalf of like people I've spoken with. Because people are, you know, conflicted about just keeping it to Ukraine. Like, there's been conflicts, there are ongoing conflicts in countries like Yemen, Somalia, Palestine. You know, Afghanistan still is reeling from the US pulling out. So I think being more expansive in how this committee or like the infrastructure of this group works, and really speaking to globally what's going on, because a lot of, like, since I was a student, there were like attempts to speak about these various conflicts and they were shut down either by the school or you know, there was just, because it's not white people, and I want to be very clear about this, because it's not white people, because it's Black and brown people, it was like messy. And suddenly now there's more selective empathy for folks. So, you know, let's just be real about this. So as expansive as it can be, that's a good idea. So I just want to leave it at that.
Are there any additional comments, concerns, points, questions? Henry?
I guess just real quick to add to this, because it seems like if this moves forward, this committee moves forward, a big first step is going to be finding the scope of any initial work or information they want to share, or finding where the students are most concerned with regards to these issues. I just want to throw it out there because it was something that caught me a little bit by surprise. I heard from one of the folks in the business department. Just so you're all aware, there is at least one IIT student in the MBA program who has gone back to Ukraine to take part in the conflict. So as whoever's involved in this committee is exploring that, that information about how, you know, that actual impact, not only for the families of people here who have families in Ukraine, how it's impacting them, but there are also specific student cases on this campus that can be examined to and provide the support. So just wanted to throw that information out there. I don't know any more than that that individual exists, but just help give some maybe first steps for the discussion as it moves forward.
Exley?
Sorry, what was the question? I missed it. Or was there a question?
It wasn't a question, it was more a point of information that there is at least one Ukrainian student who has gone back to fight in this conflict.
To fight?
From the MBA program, yeah, that's what we were told by one of our business professors, yes.
So to join the military?
I don't know the specific parameters, if it's for, you know, helping with civilian efforts or not, but I know they're an IIT student who has gone back to Ukraine to participate in the conflict.
Okay, and I mean, and you all want me to respond and say what exactly?
No.
No, I don't know why it's directed at me. No, I mean.
This is just adding to the conversation. Yes, sorry for the confusion.
Okay, sorry, my hand is still up, but I can lower it. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm very much against conflict and war, and I think I'm personally for the abolition of NATO. So I'm probably not the best person to speak to about this, to be honest.
Are there any other comments, questions, points that people would like to make so far?
Just one last point. I feel like IT has been getting better at minority groups, but I'm not, and I don't even want to use that. Like, I feel like they're getting better, but I just wanted to encourage everyone not to stop going to the school if they're like, if they're that's just horrible. Like, I think that's something that the students can, like, you know, like discuss together and then make it a bigger issue, because it is a big issue if the school is denying you to come forward with something to care about. So I just wanted to say, like, if you have something like that, please do come forward. I know last week we got other events. I think this was just something that either someone, I don't know who like proposed this like initially, but I just know a really like big group of Ukrainian students cared about this, and I know that SGA wanted to care about this, and if there's other like things that we want to put together and put forth and care about, we should. So yeah, just I wish that that didn't happen in the past. I feel like it's getting better. I don't know, but that could be something we bring forward to this.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time again. Do I have another motion to extend, and if so, by how much?
5 minutes.
Gotcha. Do I have a second? Perfect. Wyatt?
I just have a quick point of information. Anyone is free to talk during open floor. So, I mean, if you are a student or not, or even a senator, and you want to talk about an issue and maybe like try and organize something to happen, open floor is your time. We can't stop you, really. That's all.
Thank you. Nova?
I'll keep this short. I would just like to publicly announce my support for the amendment that the finance board chair has brought up, and further that I think the fact that we are discussing such an amendment is great proof, though it's not the final step. It's the fact that we are moving forward from IIT's past handling oppressed minority groups, of particularly Black and Brown students and groups a lot better. Although, again, it's not the final step, but I do see this as a good moving forward from that.
Chloe?
Just off that point and off what a lot of people have been speaking about, but I really wouldn't say IIT's passed. I mean, you can see through some of the meetings we've had. We've had SJP come in. They've been trying to get their flag put up in Herman Hall for like a year now, maybe more. I expect to see if there's pushback on a flag from the university. I expect to see pushback. I don't know if it'll be at the same level, obviously, with all these differences, but with how these conflicts are being treated. But I want to find a way, and part of that amendment, part of that committee is finding a way to support from SGA that doesn't necessarily need support from the school itself, because I do see that pushback happening. And I think that we need to be a strong enough network to be able to support students in any way they need from SGA without having to reach beyond and deal with that pushback.
I did want to say, as a PSAC member, that this is something that I will bring up with the rest of the council regarding, because we have our meeting, I think, with the president Friday after the Friday we return from spring break. So from about 2 weeks from this Friday, we have that conversation. We know the university has been silent regarding the issue entirely for many reasons. So just getting down to the bottom.
Thank you. Jason?
I just want to say, I'll stand. I feel like you're standing. I just want to say that, again, it seems like with this committee, there's like a lot of red tape and a lot of pushback from IIT. So what if we tried again like a club? And that way we can get access to SAF. And then if IIT comes in and says you can't distribute SAF to a club for like events about raising humanitarian awareness, then clearly that's when we come in and say, yeah, no, IIT, what are you doing? So that's my idea. Like, can I get some information about like what's the difference between doing this special committee and then doing a club if it seems like this committee might have initial
Chloe?
Part of the way that the amendment's structured is that the committee, if there was any type of budget, even if donations were being pushed back, if there was any type of budget, just like an event, it'd be going through SGA's budget. So it'd still be coming through from an organization. So it'd be applying the same rules as any organization and policies and whatnot. So like if there was pushback from that through SGA as an organization and just as SGA could be like, you can't do that. Technically, they have no control over the SAF anyways. So like we could say they can't do that, but it's essentially the same thing, just two different paths. One would just be a part of SGA, one would be an entirely separate organization.
Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I think we can move past this. Thank you guys for your thoughts and comments and ideas, and thank you for that wonderful presentation. Moving on, we are going to start with our first appointment nomination for tonight. A nomination to the liaison to the presses of Chris Schiffler. Would you like to come up or stand?
I'll just stand.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, I'm Chris. I would like to be the liaison to the presses because I've been at Tech News since I first came to the school, so over 2 years now. I do mainly layout editing, but I also have been doing a lot of writing, especially recently. And I pride myself in being meticulous with my research and my details when I do it, and doing my best to just when I'm doing an interview or taking notes on something to keep it as objective as possible. so that you're getting what is happening and not necessarily my subjective thoughts on it, unless I am writing an opinion. But
So with that, standard 5-minute Q&A. Nova, looks like you already have a question.
Just to make sure, because I know we've been a little bit without a liaison to the press, I believe. President Ben Barber was the one previously relaying what's been going on with SGA to Tech News, correct?
I believe so, and I also know Dan also writes some stuff about it from time to time.
Yeah, we had a liaison to the press late last semester. They resigned, I believe, mid-February from the organization in total. And so it's been kind of patchy since then.
Are there any other questions for Chris? Do I have a motion to go to discussion? Second. Perfect. All right. I believe we would need, yeah. Yes. Just until voting is done. I'll let you know when we're coming back to it. Okay, got it. So, as before, 5-minute discussion period overall. Does anyone have any points that they would like to bring up? Samir.
So in the past, I have been the liaison to the presses. I regularly read Tech News. I read Chris's past work. I think they are a great writer. They have the capability of doing it for this book.
Thank you. Nova?
Similarly to the chair in life, I'm a newer but frequent reader of the Tech News, and Chris has very well proven themselves to be an extremely competent writer, and I have no doubt in their ability to be a great liaison to the presses, and I would just like to fully announce my support in favor of Chris.
Are there any other points for discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to go to voting or calling the previous question? Second? Thank you. Then you can release the voting form. I'm going to go grab Chris.
Voting form has dropped.
All right. That, we have a nomination for the VP of Events of Beck. A note which was raised earlier on is that this is intended to be for the 2022 through 2023 school year. So this next election cycle, not these next 2 weeks. Just an important note of information. So Beck, if you'd introduce yourself, why you're qualified for the role and overall history.
I am wondering, so you said that that is for like the next period of time.
Yes.
So I'm starting to work like in the fall, I guess, right?
You would be working you'd be transitioning in over the next 2 weeks. You would be a part of the same executive board as Isaiah, Nova, Elio, myself, and Akil. And
So, hi everyone. My name is Bik Mohamed. I am a sophomore pursuing computer science. I am an international student, and I am looking forward with you guys because SGA has its own advantages right now, but it also has disadvantages and space to grow. And as a vice president, if elected, I vote to eradicate the issues with involvement among students, because this is one of the major problems here, especially after COVID, is like students students do not get events or like SGA, because you see that there's, I don't see any like students coming to the SGA meetings, and as well as after meeting a few events. Yeah, sorry. I mean, just 2 out of 5,000. Yes, very bad numbers. Especially to my regret, I attended a few meetings while I was here, and some of it was very different type of meetings, and they like collect just a few number of people. So I will try to eliminate this problem. Also, I would like to reform this role, because currently it is involving just a few responsibilities, and I will try to work with IDEA and try to change this position. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, so as before, if I could actually get my stopwatch to work, we're going to go into 5-minute questions and answers period. Nova.
This is not to be a negative if you haven't, but have you by chance reached out to the previous?
Actually, no.
Again, that's fine.
I can explain. I just started. Like, I heard about this position very like few weeks ago, I guess, after the deadline is passed. So I'm just trying to, like get in track with everything. I will try to contact you.
Are there any other questions? Alejandro.
Yes, I was just curious as to what kind of experience you have in the past, whether it's from another student organization on campus or whether it's maybe with organizing events or things of that nature, and you kind of get a feel for the procedure of doing that.
Thank you for the question. Prior to Illinois Tech, I founded a club that was mentoring approximately 40 children from an orphanage, and I was like a role model and trying to teach them not only the academics, and also I will try to motivate them and also the relationship with them even after the classes. Also, I was a volunteering teacher for the peer volunteering teacher for like students and prepare them for the math. Like also I taught them SAT and IELTS. So and I was like a mentor who taught them and revealed the way to determine the short and long-term goals. So after these lessons, I helped them to apply to the international universities. Also, I led a team of 10 people on the major championship, world powerlifting championship, and I was a liaison between the volunteering organization as well as the administration of this event and the volunteers. So I think that's that.
Are there any other questions? Or do I have a motion to move to discussion? Thank you. All right, Beck, if you would step out of the room, please. All righty-o, standard procedure as usual. Nova.
Thank you. So I'm sure many of you remember Beck Mohammed was part of the very recent wave of senators that we had just brought into the Senate. And through that, I found Beck Mohammed to be a very competent senator, both in his experiences, his goals. I think his goals are very in line with what a lot of the exec board and a lot of the senators here have noted, and he also seems to be extremely passionate. This is just my long way of saying he has my full approval, and I do hope to see him as VP of Events.
Are there any other points? Naeem.
One thing I did want to say was in regard to specifically With being vice president of the event, so does that technically start 2 weeks from now in that case?
Yes.
Okay, so this doesn't take place until everyone else gets sworn in.
Yes. You would be transitioning in over the course of the next 2 weeks. Here?
It's like a question. Yes. Do we have a group of senators
We have a few senators who are interested in particularly focusing on the SGA banquet and working on that. And that would likely be the formation of the events committee for the next term. In addition, there is the Senate elections, which is going to be coming up fairly soon. Isaiah.
I'll stand up.
So I just wanted to say about Beck. He reached out to me the morning after last meeting, of course, the election results were held, stating that he was very interested in the position. Apparently, he had applied 2 weeks ago now for it, but I guess I just missed like the election. I know that much. But either way, it just proves to me that he's been very interested in his position for a while, and also me and him share the same aspirations of hoping to kind of reinvent the role, kind of reestablish his presence here in SGA. Full transparency. My plans for the position, the term EP of events probably won't exist anymore. Not to say that being part of the EBOR won't exist anymore, but I just plan on kind of growing the scope of it, and it's something that also I just wanted to say that he's my full support, and I hope that the Senate approves it to get inaugurated in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Are there any other points of discussion? Sandy.
He's gonna have it. What are we gonna do?
Oh no, he's still going to be a vice president of events, but he'll be a different title, more like a vice president of outreach in general to help, like he said, with whole engagement. So I just want the term to be different, so it has a broader scope. So yeah, that's the goal.
Wyatt?
Is that not the function of the communications committee? Is that not the function of the communications committee?
Again, there's one more to say that I'm not getting into specifics to right now. Give me 2 weeks.
Nova?
On the line of Isaiah, I probably should have said this when I was doing it, but as future VP of Student Life, I do think he would make a great addition to the executive board.
And I did want to ask, since you all do have to work with him, does the incoming exec board, I guess we have some representatives. Are you all, I guess, happy with it?
Raise your hand, E-board, if you're good with it. Yeah.
Are there any other points of discussion? You looking good online, Ben?
Nobody has raised their hands online.
Nabiha? Nobody. I can hear.
Second.
Okay, I have had a motion to approve and then second, so go ahead and release the voting form. I'll go grab Beck.
Voting form has dropped. Probably should have said this with the last one too. If you are the subject of the vote, please do not vote. Everyone else, the voting form is on Slack.
All right. So, good old meat and potatoes.
After speaking. Sorry.
All right. So we are going to be moving on to the next agenda item, which is a open letter on the masking policy of IIT from Elliot. Elliot, if you'd like to stand and give a summary of what your letter is.
Hi there. So I'm here tonight. My name is Elio. You all pretty much know who I am at this point. So basically, this open letter highlights what I and many other students do agree with, that the university may have taken a step in the wrong direction when it comes to removing the masking policy a bit prematurely, given that we're about to go into spring break. And as you know, spring break is the time where people travel, they go out, they go back to their families, you know, and maybe sometimes they bring back a few germs. I myself am traveling to Washington, D.C. and Boston on a personal trip. And again, you know, there's a chance that I could bring back some germs. And obviously, I'm going to keep masking throughout that whole trip. But I'm an example of a student that's going to be going out. And basically, this open letter highlights that we should most definitely bring back the mask mandate at least until May, which is, you know, the end of the semester, you know, May 7th, with that specific date in mind as well, which is when we all depart campus. And it's essentially just highlighting that while, yes, by state and by city, we are able to take off the mask mandate, the CDC's recommendations for IHEs, which is the institutions of higher education, they still highly recommend masks to be worn at all times on all places in any campus. This is including things as low as kindergartens and as high as research institutions, and of course, regular universities such as ourselves, the Illinois Institute of Technology. And while we could bring back the mask mandate at a later date, that is obviously assuming that people will have gotten infected, and that's not good. We want to make sure that people don't get infected. So essentially, that's what I'm trying to bring forward with this. Hopefully we can do a bit more when it comes to making sure that we don't go too long tonight. I'll try to answer the questions as concisely and quickly as I can. So yeah.
Thank you. Standard procedure, 5 minutes of questions and answers.
Okay.
Survey results, please.
Yeah, sure. I was going to bring them up during Sunday reports.
Change of information, what survey results are you seeing?
Oh, sorry. I helped Ellie disperse a maxing survey to at least some residents who I know has also been popular elsewhere on campus, but essentially a survey asking students what they thought regarding it.
Okay. And by the way, there is a commenting section, and I will be mentioning some of these comments because I think they're pretty interesting. So I'll just write it right here on the side. So right now, the polls stand at this. 10.9% of people, that is total 21 people, want the mask mandate to stay as it is right now, okay? The total of people that want it to go back to the way it was is 42.2% at 81 people. Go back to the way it was. And for people that voted to remove the mandate, that is a total of 89 people with 46.4%. That is removal. This survey was conducted with I don't know why I have two colors. This survey was conducted over a period of about 3 weeks. And
Sorry, it was all dramatic and everything. I have this thing. I'm like, let's whip it out.
no, I like that. So essentially, we can see most people still prefer to keep it one way or another, which is, you know, this subject head right here, and then these people want it to completely be removed. This was conducted over a period of about 3 weeks, which is before it was sent to the RHA. And it included the simple question, where should a mask mandate exist? With those 3 options, which is going back, having it right now, or moving forward and removing it altogether. And the sample size was 192 people. So pretty decent. It was pretty successful. And if I may mention some of the concerns that these students had, and keep in mind this was an anonymous poll, so you know, there's no bias, and I hope there's not a lot of bias in this. But essentially, most people stated their concerns. When it came to this section, they were like basically saying, It's quite honestly preferable to keep the masks on with the professors around as opposed to keeping them on all the time, just because it's the professors that we are truly risking. And many professors will refuse to teach if they remove the mask mandate altogether. And this is not just from one professor, but this is from multiple professors across campus from multiple departments and multiple colleges. And essentially, for these people that wanted it to go back the way it was, most of them were concerned about the pre-existing conditions or the pre-existing conditions of others. Many were also concerned that while Omicron is pretty low right now, that it may go back up because of late night, because of spring break. They were essentially concerned for their own safety as well. And then for the people that wanted to remove it, the most common comment was verbatim, "I don't like masks." Yeah, that was literally what I saw most of the time. But some of the better comments were that essentially that we have been following the science, which admittedly, yes, we have been following the majority of the science, and that they basically don't want to wear masks anymore because we're basically going to be living with COVID at this point for the rest of our lives, because we've reached a point where we just ignored it too much, and at this point it's just an endemic virus.
I'm going to cut you off there because we have about a minute left.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
The motion to accept by 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do we have a second? Perfect. All right.
There's been a question before.
Yes.
Chris.
I was just wondering if you'd be willing to put some of like the links with like the information that you were sharing into the Slack at all? Like the data you're talking about with like CDC recommendations and everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
At some point.
I'll try looking for the bookmark. I'm not sure if it's in my phone or right here, but I'll post it on later tonight. I'll make sure to post it. Carol, please remind me.
Nova, do you have a question?
Just a short inquiry. Is this the same survey that RHA had released on Monday or Sunday evening?
Yes, it is.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Apologies,
All right. Yeah, sorry if it's the wrong time. I don't know how these things work. So my main concern with like the mask mandate, I have a math. I think that it's important that we have a mandate. But I've been noticing even before we ended the mandate that there are students in MTCC, lecture halls, etc., who don't want to wear masks, don't wear masks, especially when they're in a crowd. I understand if like, you're alone in a hallway, that's different than like you're standing in the middle of a classroom. But so there's no one that forces this. So I guess my question is, if we do continue to have a mandate in any sense, is there going to be any enforcement than there is now? Because in the end, if there is no enforcement, then what we're doing here is basically just kind of just voting on nothing that matters.
Yeah, absolutely agree. To the extent that this letter goes, it is not asking for more heavy enforcement, though I would expect that IIT step up its enforcement with this open letter, simply because you're talking about the well-being of the students. Personally, I think it was well enforced enough, but we could use room to improve. So, cool.
Alejandro, I believe you were next.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to point out that, I think that's 91 people.
92. 192.
Okay, wait. Sorry, I'm not, I haven't.
Oh,
been
shoot.
that, so I think I should have been this
I am so sorry. Yes, you are right. There is one person that filled out the survey before I made an edit. Let me add that one person.
Okay, okay. Anyway, about 190 something. That it is a fairly substantial amount of people. It is only a fairly small percentage of the total number of people living on campus, let alone the total IIT enrollments. So I mean, it would probably be roughly like 3 to 5% if I had to guess the total enrollment. So I'm not sure how representative this is of the IIT's opinion. Right? students' IEP opinions as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is a very small sample size compared to the campus that we have. And honestly, I tried my best to get it out there. I posted it everywhere I could. And these were the amount of responses that I got in the past 3 weeks. So yeah, I tried my best. And this is the best I was able to get. So yeah, I do understand your concern. This is honestly small sample size, like I said. So it's not supposed to be represented all the students, but at least it's supposed to tell us what we should be listening to. Is what I'm, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
I saw the posters. I think you did a good job.
Thank you. I believe
Chloe, you have a point?
Chloe, you had a point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't expect IIT to enforce it anymore if we were to pass something like this. Like, even if they were to say, oh, masks are required, like, technically speaking, if in the city and the state, there's no mask mandate inside certain places, and that's what they decided to do, like, I just don't know if you should put that much hope into IIT on, like, doing this. So then it does beg the question, like, is this letter really gonna have a substantial impact? Or, you know, is this something more, instead of saying, oh, we're asking IIT to completely change this, maybe instead of saying, like, hey, as SGA was saying, we support a mask mandate instead. I don't know. I don't want to vote on something that's not gonna, like, change anything.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, that's
With who like will uphold the policy, speaking from the office of residence life and being an RA, at least in the residence halls, the RAs are the ones to uphold that. I've yelled at many students for masks, especially last year when it was at its like very peak. Yeah, so that was a good time. But when it comes to that, if they're in the residence halls, at least the RAs can do that. It might not happen all the time, but when that's the case, then you can actually go to a reporting form and then also go to the supervisor of the RAs or the SRA of the building and then inform them. And then we can then have an accountability meeting with that RA. So then that's how that's done. And then we are instructed as RAs, especially last year, if students wouldn't put on their mask after like a few warnings or whatever is necessary, that you'd actually contact public safety, and public safety can help write report or actually just say like, please, could you also like wear a mask? So there's always the public safety option.
And once again, we are out of time with regards to this. Do I have another motion to extend?
by just questioning, by the way.
This is a question. Okay.
Do I have a motion to move to discussion?
Second.
Thank you. Elio?
Hi, Elio.
Elio made a mistake. You have to leave.
You don't want to be by us, we get it.
Hi, Elio. I'm sorry about that. Okay, Nova.
Thank you. The concerns that the senator brings up are, I believe, very valid, especially with late night just having passed and spring break just around the corner. Woo, by the way. I do think, at least for the short term, we definitely should bring back the previous mandate just to be safe. So yeah, I am in full support of this bill.
Elio?
Can I include another point of information that I think is also important? There is a comment from an anonymous RA that actually says they did not like enforcing this mask mandate and that they commonly avoided the areas where they may have to enforce it.
Give me their name. Just kidding.
Oh no, I genuinely don't have it.
I know, you're good. But I'll find you. Okay.
Oh, no. All right. Naeem?
Also, I can also talk on that. When I was an RA, that is not a fucking thing to enforce. I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, yeah, that is the job, right? Regarding what I wanted to discuss though was I did of course send that out to all the residents. I'm not exactly sure if there was like that huge bump in responses once I sent out that mass email.
Oh no,
but,
there was.
Oh, there was. Okay, so in that case, we might want to consider this data is a bit skewed at least toward resident students. So just keep that in mind of residents.
might make the bulk of these responses. So just
Just a quick.
You can go.
Yeah, this will be short. Just a point of inquiry to Naeem. Does the RHA email not go out to the online students?
No, so RHA emails go out to anyone who is technically considered a resident by the office presence life. That includes anyone who is physically living in a dorm on campus. And we are also including sorority houses, even though now that's being debated. But as of right now, that's no problem.
Personally, I just want to say it's getting to a point for me where I definitely feel like maybe not going back to the previous mandate, but keeping it as it is right now, because I am worried about spring break definitely, and I think because it's so difficult to enforce, and I know lots of professors also don't want to enforce, there's like so many classes I've seen people just not wearing them, and professors just don't say anything, even if they're interacting face to face with the student. I don't know if we do pass this letter, if the school does anything, if the staff is necessarily going to do anything, but I do think keeping it as it is might be the best option, and definitely better than fully removing it, because it's like spring break. I know I'm going back to a place where we haven't had mask mandates really all beginning of the pandemic. Yeah, I'll be masking in public there and everything, but I do monitor people in their offices for obvious reasons. I do think that we should at least try and voice support for keeping masks on campus.
Thank you. Notice that Ben DeBarber has raised it.
Gotcha. Ben, go ahead.
So this was actually a topic of conversation at the last UFC meeting on Friday. The current intention of the university is that the next time the mask mandate will be touched is at least 2 weeks after spring break. So the university does not plan to relax the guidelines any further than they currently are until they've had a chance to look at the post-spring break testing numbers. So that is something that the Office of Community Relations, I believe Jessica is the one heading up the COVID guidelines at the moment, and the next steps are entirely going to be driven by what do our numbers look like after spring break. So just for the people who are concerned about what the next steps are going to be conditioned on.
Thank you. Jason.
Yeah, I was just curious. I was just speaking again with the author, but I believe maybe we can ask in the open letter, make an amendment for testing before we get on campus. Because even though, yeah, you can say you can wear a mask, and we can, enforce and increase the mask mandate, if they still go to commons to eat, they're going to be taking masks off. It's like having a peeing section in the pool again. So all jokes aside, I think that might be a nice amendment to do. I mean, they've done it before we got back during the fall, if I'm assuming correct, to do the testing. And that would also help them in their metrics when they're looking at the data before touching the mask policy again. So if we can amend it to say that each student needs to provide a test, and that way if they are positive, then they can go through office residence life for the quarantining policy. And then, yeah, that's what I think.
Wonderfully, once again, we are out of time for this particular discussion period.
Second.
Thank you. Wyatt?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I mean, based on the results of the poll, and given that just a slight majority of students prefer that we either keep or extend the mask mandate, the sensible compromise would be to keep it as it is. And I think that SGA should instead voice its support to maintain it for, a longer period of time than the university intends. I mean, they tend to base that on testing, but if SGA could say, we think this should stay for until at least the end of the semester, then that would be something that we could do based on the data that we have and we could talk to whoever's in charge of the COVID mandates and just ensure that it's not changed.
Hold on, I was gonna go to Henry next, but Jason, did you want to propose a friendly amendment to the open letter? Its purpose towards testing instead of a mask mandate?
Yes, do we want to let them ask any other questions before addressing the amendment?
We can, yeah. Another point of information is it is nearly 11. So I would like to ask if we have a motion to table any other business until next meeting. Just because I do not want this letter to go, or this meeting to go any later than about 11.
What was the rest of this?
An election time.
Election time.
Okay.
But Henry.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Jason that testing might be the most productive way, given that lack of a general enforcement mechanism for mask wearing and some kind of fixed numbers on support for that measure. I guess the question is just given the timeline we're on, how close we are to spring break, and just in terms of access, would the university have enough tests on hand to support a mass spike in testing of students coming back from spring break? And is that a consideration that should be written into the open letter? If that's what we're recommending, should it be, within a week, 2 weeks that every student has to get tested? Just want to make sure if we're going to make masks for the university is reasonable with any supplies they have for that testing already on hand, because we're on such a short time.
Elio?
I would agree that it should probably be a week, maybe 2 weeks, given that COVID tests are still pretty hard to access, specifically the PCR tests. So,
Naeem.
I would ask, would it at least be in our best interest to, emulate what the university is doing, and also gain access to that data they're using to determine whether or not we continue with this push.
if I'm correct, you're asking if we should be able to access the data which they're getting from testing?
Well, yeah, for one, do we have access? I guess I have access.
We do have access. I've been keeping like a really close eye on it since like December, and we do have access to it, but it's a little bit shaky. Like I know how we were required to submit tests at the beginning of the school year to come back, but like the first thing that stands out to you when you look at it, there's like only, I want to say 800 tests submitted, and there's way more than 800 people that go on campus and stuff like that. So who knows how accurate the data was, because it's changed before. And who knows, if they're actually using that data or something else that they have.
I'm sure it relates to Ben. He said, I believe last week, that testing can be delayed by up to, I believe he said 3 days, maybe 5. So yeah, the data is pretty shaky, which is why I would recommend 2 weeks.
Do we have any other points or amendments or anything that we would like to say? Jason?
So should I just clarify that I want to add a friendly amendment that should passed within the first 2 weeks of arriving back from spring break?
Would you accept that amendment, Elio?
Absolutely.
All right. I believe that with acceptance, it's just the author's purpose. So instead of a mask mandate, this would be focusing on a testing requirement within 2 weeks after arriving to campus after spring break. Do I have a motion to move the previous question or move to voting? Gotcha. Ben, you can go ahead and release the voting form. Nova, yes.
I would like to move to table discussion on all further items until next meeting.
Do I have a second on that? Could I get a quick vote on that, just by hand? If you.
Yeah.
There's not a doubt. We're going to be moving the elections timeline amendment until next meeting. So we're going to quickly go through executive reports. Just really quick. Samir, go ahead.
Congratulations and all the best to Nova, our incoming VP of Student Life. And this Sunday, coming on at 12 p.m. CST, I'm going to have like a student life meeting. Anyone who is interested in student life next semester, please reach out to any one of us. And yeah, it'll be fun.
Moving on, Sandy. Thank you. Moving on, Ben.
Yep. Exec transition is ongoing. If you are starting an exec role and have not heard from the outgoing office holder, please let me know immediately so we can set up something to help you get transitioned into that role. PIA Professor is tomorrow. Come check that out on the bridge over the lunch hour. Spring break is next week. Inauguration of new officers is in 2 weeks, so be on the lookout for all that fun stuff.
Perfect. Celestine, if you're still here, sorry about keeping you so late.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. Actually, just some reminders on the screen. Only use blue tape and paint with the painter tape on the walls on campus, no chalking. This was based on an incident that occurred recently, and that's why it's a reminder right now. Late night missing equipment as a result of a pillow fight, foam helmet, golf club, golf balls, and also is just a reminder, please return to the welcome desk so that we don't get charged and replaced for those items. Also, we're going to have a professor on the bridge during lunch. And also we're going to do a virtual 5K run for PI. And that will be Friday morning. We still haven't determined the time, and I will be running that race as well with any of the students that sign up. And then the last item was to check Handshake for on-campus summer employment, because that's something that's coming up now with opportunities for the summer. And we will have bridge recruiting returning the week after spring break, and that will be March 22nd through April 28th.
All right.
And that's it. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on. Do we have any senator reports, please?
That was going to be my report.
All right, Jason.
Yes, Ukrainian supply drive in every single residence hall. Go check it out. Drop in a food can or check the list. Yeah.
Chris.
So first of all, this is just kind of going to be a tech news plug, but tech news, we're going to be doing executive election stuff fairly soon. So there's going to be some changes there. And whether or not there's me as liaison for prejudice or someone else like that, I'm hoping to stay with the organization and hopefully get us tighter knit, like SGA and tech news, no matter like what happens with whoever goes in that role. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Naeem.
For spring break, so anyone who is for your email for that, we did not have a meeting this week because of midterms. We decided to miss this meeting, but we will be having one 2 weeks after the return, so it's going to offset our meeting schedule a little bit.
Nova.
To the student life committee members, I have released a message in the Slack yesterday about some organizational changes and just some maintenance upkeep with the shared drive. Do please check it out. Yeah.
Open floor. Isaiah.
Very quickly, just want to say to the outgoing and incoming executive boards, please watch out for your emails, just so we can have one final piece of contact with one another. Sandy, if you can make it, and also Akil, since you guys have already met before, please don't feel like you have to discuss it.
Thank you. Anything else?
Happy spring break.
Woo.
Thank
you.
Minute in recess now.
Oh, yeah, I got a lot of them.